The Jester and the Stranger's Language, puppeteered by Julian, Dean, Andrew, and Chris T. King Maharaja was the king of Bengal, and Prince William was his son. It was during the Middle Ages. It was customary for kings in those days to hire talented people. So every king had his own poets, artists, singers, town planners, architects, and more. They also had plenty of ministers to advise them on different matters. Every king and prince also had a court jester. The jester was a very important person for his ability to make people laugh and feel happy. The king had a lot of serious work to do, difficult problems to solve. It meant a lot of tension, so he needed someone to make his tension lighter with jokes, and to help him with unexpected advice where no one else could help. Gopal was the Maharaja's favorite jester. A barber by profession, he had razor-sharp wit and could make the best of any situation. He was bright and clever and had a tremendous presence of mind. But what was most important is he had a kind heart as well. He was always ready to help, and not just the king. Maharaja King and the prince one day had a new visitor. The stranger could recite all the scriptures in perfect Sanskrit. He could speak Arabic and Persian. He spoke to the people in perfect Bengali with all its varied dialects. And he could hold forth in half a dozen other languages too. No one knew which part of the country the stranger came from, though. It was a mystery not just to the king and the prince, but to everyone else. "Where are you from?" said the king many times. "This country, your majesty," replied the scholar. "I belong right here with the rest of you." "And what is your language?" said the prince. "Why, the language of this land," said the stranger. "But who is your father?" "You are, sire. The king is the father of all his subjects." "What about your family?" "I am part of yours," came the prompt answer from the stranger. It was useless to question this scholar. He always came up with vague, poetic answers which sounded so good that it was quite impossible to pin him down. Gradually, people got to calling him Masai, a respectful term of address, because he seemed to know so much. "I wish I knew who he is and where he comes from," the king said to Gopal one day. "I feel really uncomfortable when I realize I don't even know what his language is. A king ought to have every detail about his subjects at his fingertips." "I could find out what his language is," said Gopal. "Then please do," said the king. "Once I know that, I can easily find out the rest about him." Gopal followed Masai the stranger closely for the next few days. He followed him to his house. He followed him to his work. He took note of all that he did. Pundit Masai the stranger lived all by himself. He did his own cooking and shopping. Gopal landed up there late one evening, well before Masai arrived from the market. He was inside his home, and he hid all the lamps and lanterns in the house. By the time the stranger reached home, everything was in complete darkness. He opened the door and hunted for a lamp. All the lamps seemed to have vanished. So had the matches. Masai could not imagine what had happened. He had left everything in a place, as usual, before he had gone to the market. Who could have possibly taken them? He felt really annoyed. As he fumbled in the darkness, he slowly ran into Gopal, who promptly trod on his toes. "Ouch! You blasted fool!" he cried in Oriya. "Are you blind?" Gopal chuckled, "Ha ha ha ha," and ran out in the darkness before the stranger could discover who he was. Gopal made straight for the palace and asked to see the king. The king said, "But I'm asleep. I'm sleeping." And Gopal said, "Tell the king I am here and have an important message to convey." The king was curious about Gopal's message and sent for him at once. Sire, I have a solution to your problem, Gopal said, laughing. Do you mean about the stranger? Asked the Maharaja eagerly. Have you managed to discover what his language is and which part of the country he belongs to? Yes, I have found out both, said Gopal. He is from Orissa and his language is Oriya, he said triumphantly. But how can you possibly be sure, said the prince. The man speaks so many languages. His language could be any one of them. But I am sure, your majesty, said Gopal. You can ask him tomorrow. But tell me what makes you sure, said the king. Sire, when a person is caught off guard, the language that springs instinctively to his lips is his own mother tongue. Pandit Masai was not expecting anyone to be at his house at that time, so when I suddenly trod on his toes out of the blue, he automatically exclaimed in Oriya and not any other language. When the Maharaja saw the stranger in the courtyard the very next morning, and then when the prince saw the stranger in the courtyard, they came up to him and said, Well, stranger, so you are from Orissa? Your language is Oriya, isn't it? Yes, it is, said the stranger with a broad smile. How did you find out? Why didn't you tell me right at the outset, said the king. Well, I enjoyed myself when everyone was trying to guess my real identity. Please tell me how you managed to discover it. Well, actually, it was Gopal who did, said the king, smiling. Gopal, you mean that jester of yours? Asked the Maasai in surprise. He is a barber, isn't he? Yes, he is. But even barbers can be super intelligent, you know, said Gopal, laughing, especially when it comes to plain common sense. The end. Now move your puppets around, take a bow. Yay! All right, and press the red button.